Hello and welcome to Radio Spätkauf, Berlin's news show. I'm Maisie.
Oh, hi, this is Daniel Stern.
And this is Yuri Mandik.
And I'm Joel. Should we say Johan Mandik, candidate for city mayor, by the way?
Independent running candidate.
That's right. We're going to have you on posters all up and down Neukölln soon. Welcome to Radio Spätkauf, the Berlin news show. Coming up on this show, we're going to look at a controversy involving the U-Bahn and typography. Did the BVG pirate a font from a Berlin typographer? And we'll also look at the working conditions for many of the bicycle food delivery riders who are busy bringing dinner to lazy people.
All right, first news item up is Berlin has finally got some free public Wi-Fi spots.
This is an issue that's been discussed for years, but it's never actually been achieved. Well, finally, the city has managed to install some free open Wi-Fi spots, which, starting a couple of weeks ago, actually, they put up 100 free Wi-Fi spots in the main tourist areas around the center of the city. And they're actually planning to roll out 2,000 hotspots by 2017. And it's all being paid for through an advertising deal with an audio books company. So this is the city's own initiative, but actually there's already a very lively free Wi-Fi network across Berlin that most people don't know about. It's called Freifunk, and you can find it basically by going to public Wi-Fi.de, if you can connect to the internet, that is. And you can find that there's all these citizens around Berlin who have opened up their Wi-Fi routers through this system called Freifunk, so that you can already access free Wi-Fi. Huh. And assisting all of this is a new law that was passed at a federal level, where the federal government has actually removed this onerous issue that had been basically plaguing Wi-Fi connections in the city for years, which is this law that says that if you have a Wi-Fi connection, you are personally responsible for whatever happens on it, even if somebody else, downloads a movie. And this is what's been stopping a lot of cafes having free Wi-Fi. The federal government has recently removed that law, so it's now no longer the responsibility of the cafe owner. This does not, however, mean that it's a free-for-all. You can't just go downloading at home and pretending it wasn't you, because if they can still somehow link it back to your machine, they'll still try and sue you, basically.
And also don't steal things.
That's
it's immoral. That's I think I was in Marrakesh some years ago, and there was a giant park of like free Wi-Fi and technology, and it was awesome because it was like this public space where everyone could get together and do their private browsing, and that's not what I meant. Like they could, it's like, you had like people on their devices, but like sharing a space together, and it was amazing and remarkable. And so, well, what I'm saying is this thing that's obviously good is.
This new law makes free Wi-Fi possible. Fantastic.
Finally, Germany might catch up, because in Germany there is far less free Wi-Fi spots than there are anywhere else in developed world. Germany has 51.8 Wi-Fi open spots per 100,000 residents, compared to the UK, where there are 99.7, although Germany is still well ahead of Spain, which apparently has 10. So it's not all bad.
Not bad going.
Yeah.
This just in, since we started the show 10 minutes ago, there's like an audience here. So guys, give yourselves a round of applause.
Hi.
There you go. Yeah, it's
brave
raining.
The rain. We assumed no one was coming at all. So I was a bit shocked to look up and see there's anybody here at all. But thank you all for coming along and braving the rain.
All right.
Berlin city councillors are hard at work worrying about the big issues, apparently. Recently, a councillor put an official question on notice to the city authorities about a skateboarding dog.
Yes. The question was this. Is the Bezirksamt aware that there is a bulldog riding a skateboard on Alexanderplatz every day? Very big issue.
Burning issue.
And the councillor from the SPD-Fraktion is concerned about the dog's welfare and wants the council to investigate. You might have seen the dog.
Is this Berlin's like Poochie moment? It's an old Simpsons reference, but it's like, have we finally like jumped the shark here? It's come to this.
There's nothing else to do, really. Like, it's election year. What are you going to do? Worry about dogs. Anyway, the official response from the Bezirksamt was that they went to Alexanderplatz and couldn't in fact find the dog.
Which is funny, because I've seen the dog so many times. Have you seen the dog?
Really?
They might have not gone, actually. They were lying.
They went once and they couldn't see it. If they checked YouTube, they would have seen the dog. The dog doesn't look that unhappy to me, I've got to say. I mean, I think there are other things to worry about than the welfare of the dog, who looks pretty happy skateboarding, I've got to say, and makes his owner a fair bit of money. But if they can't get him on animal safety grounds, which was the basis of the complaint in the first place, perhaps the Ordnungsamt will be able to stop the skateboarding dog using a new Hundegesetz that has been passed by the Berlin Senate. Now, according to this new dog law, all dogs have to be on a leash. Now, previously, those under 30 centimeters were exempt, and owners will also have to carry a plastic bag to pick up the dog shit, or they'll be fined €30. Now, you'll be surprised to know that it actually took 3 years for the ruling coalition to finally agree on this new dog law. It was one of the most difficult pieces of legislation they had to negotiate in this period of parliament. It might be because there's actually quite a strong dog lobby. Berlin has 100,000 registered dogs, and there are estimates that there are up to 150,000 more unregistered dogs on top of that. It's one dog for every 23 residents. So that means there are around 250,000 dog owners who are very interested in what happens in dog politics in the city. So it might explain why it took 3 years to get that law passed.
This new ruling at Schlachtensee also made quite some waves, that dogs aren't allowed there at all anymore in summer
and the water.
season.
They've got their own lake anyway. There's a Hundesee they can take their dogs to. I have a question about this. So the skateboarding bulldog, that's a bit of a problem that the dog Hundegesetz is going to apply to. But what about the people who, you see them on the roads with their dogs on a leash and they're cycling down the road? What about that?
Well, that's actually illegal under your cycling laws, not
Really?
your dog laws.
Because that really gets my goat. I think that's just laziness.
It is pretty lazy.
And it's pretty dangerous. And the other thing I have a question about is this 30, how big is the dog's mouth? So the dog has to be under 30 centimetres to be exempt from wearing a leash or having a leash put on it.
Most of the dogs that have bitten me have been under 30 centimeters.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, who decides that? Is there a kind of body length and jaw span kind of ratio, sort of relation?
I would assume there is an opt for that, yes.
Okay.
Not anymore. They all have to be on a leash. I don't think this is really going to make any difference, though. Do you think those punks hanging out at Cottbusser are going to listen to anyone coming along and telling them to put their dog on a leash? Or, anyone else?
When did you turn 70? What are those punks that say there? Oh, rapscallions with their hounds.
Walking around these streets of Berlin, it seems that nobody in Berlin cooks anymore. Well, that's the impression you get anyway.
When did you turn 70? All right, Andy Rooney, keep going.
All these Deliveroo riders. Everybody's just riding bicycles with Deliveroo badges. There must be a lot of people ordering it, eh?
I don't know. I've never actually ordered anything from these companies, but I'm not exactly their target market either.
I have.
Yeah?
Multiple times.
You're one of the lazy non-cookers?
Yes, certainly.
The reason we're talking about food delivery and bicycles is because of an interesting political action that was taken by the drivers or the riders of Deliveroo bikes in the last few weeks. The riders who have been working for one company, which is Deliveroo, have been protesting, and they've found an interesting way to do it. They can't really afford to go on strike because that means they wouldn't be paid. So instead, they've been placing the logo on top of their delivery bags upside down. And this is a symbolic way of letting the company managers know that they're not happy. And they're basically hoping to do a little bit of minor PR damage to the company just to make a point. So I wanted to know what this protest was all about. So I went along to the Reuterplatz in Neukölln, where many of these riders take their breaks and wait for their orders. And I asked one French rider about the protest.
The freelancer at Deliveroo, they just got a weekend bonus. We used to have 50 euros a week if you were working on Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And they just gutted that. So for everyone who was working something like 20 hours a week, that was 200 euro a month for like 500 to 600 euro payslip total. So it's like a third of it. They only noticed us like 1 week in advance. So that was the reason about the little protest thingy. Now, they did something, like we have a new rain bonus, so if the weather is bad, you're gonna get paid a little more per hour. There's still a Sunday bonus, which means like if you work on a Sunday, you're gonna get 10 euros, just like a lot less than 50, but still something. So we're supposed to get order like in a 5 or 6 kilometers radius, but sometimes they need people like in Schöneberg or Kreuzberg or something, so they can move you like in different zones. And we used to have like no money from that. So now they propose to make the order, like if they move you to Schönberg when you work in Neukölln, instead of getting €2 for that order, you're gonna get €4. So they just doubling the commission on that, because we work like on a hourly wage, so €7.50 per hour, and then like €1 or €2 per delivery.
How can they pay you $7.50 an hour? The minimum wage is $8.50.
Because we're freelancers.
So why are some of you freelancers?
Because that used to be the only contract, it's not a contract, like available. So like Deliveroo, like if I'm not mistaken, like only started with freelancers. And now like they have mini jobs and actual contracts. So like it depends if it makes sense for you like to go on a freelancer basis or a contract basis. You have the choice. Like if I want to be to have a contract tomorrow, I can have that.
What happens if you get into an accident and you're a freelancer?
Like it's just your insurance. If you can't work, you are freelancer, so you're not getting any money. If I get sick tomorrow, if I can't work during the weekend, I'm not going to get like sick pay like an employee would do.
So why don't you become an employee?
Like it's just like the risk you are willing to take, because we make simply like a lot more per hour being a freelancer, but you have to pay for your own like health insurance, like additional insurance if you want to be covered if you actually cause an incident. And you can't take vacation, you don't have vacation time. Like you can take vacation, but it's not going to be paid.
Do you know what the conditions are like at the other companies?
Yes. Other companies, like we talk, like with food drivers, like that's the biggest one. They only work on a contract basis, as far as I know. It's a German company, so maybe they're more aware of the law in Germany, because like as far as I know, like freelancers in Germany, like they need to have different clients. So like Deliveroo like doesn't pressure us, but like very heavily insists on us like trying to find another client as a freelancer, because if they don't, like they say we could get into trouble. I'm pretty sure they could get into trouble, which is just like hiding an employee, like you don't pay the taxes and stuff, and you're just like making it pass as a freelancer, and that's not something the German taxes like very much.
What was your protest?
Like not wearing the logos upside down. And we met like every week to think about something we could do. So we organized a few meetings with them. Like there were like 4 or 5 people actually meeting like the head, like people at Deliveroo, like to like talk about stuff. Like the first thing we proposed was just have a better like early wage, like instead of 7.50, like 8.50, like more people, because like you have to wait from 3 to 6 months to go from a €1 per delivery to a €2 per delivery basis. Like just to have more people like getting €2 per delivery, because it's fairer for everyone.
So why did you wear the logo upside down?
Like we just wanted people from the office to notice something was happening. We started, like we agreed on that. So I personally started like to just take off the logo, but we have meeting every week and we agreed on the upside down logo. I want to show solidarity by wearing the logo upside down, because like the main thing about it is it's a big company, like it's a new like startup kind of thing. They started being very nice to us, like with very, very fair condition. Like we can bonus and stuff. And now like we saw like things like degrading a little bit. So if we don't take a stance and say something, like we take the risk of like the condition degrading more and more. So if we start saying something like threatening to quit, that kind of stuff, it did happen. Like maybe they're gonna want like to have like to make the condition a little better. And like the reason why the protests and stuff like kind of slow down now is we are seeing some kind of communication back. So we want to wait a little bit to see if the conditions are gonna get better. And if they do, like we don't have any reason to protest anymore.
So the protest is over for now, and the riders did actually manage to get some concessions out of the company. And what I was really interested about this whole episode was that it illustrates how people are responding to new working conditions. And I've been going to a lot of tech conferences lately where the issue about the freelance workforce and how we basically are sending micro-tasking jobs out to many people, and questions about what that's going to do to the social state and the social welfare. And
you know what it's going to do? It's going to ruin it.
unless people do something about it, which is what these riders have done. And what they did is they got together, they figured out something, and they tried to get some concessions out of the company. Now, I think the most effective way that they could actually do this is to get together and join a proper association or a proper union and really make their complaints known.
And I just want to give you some credit here. You know what you're talking about. You've written a book about this stuff.
I did a few years ago actually write about independent work. That's true. Thanks for the plug, Yuri.
Yeah. We love referendums at Radio Spätkauf. So I feel like it's time for a little update, Joel.
Referendums. There's always a referendum on in Berlin. If you ever get bored, go start a referendum. So there's actually two really big ones running at the moment, and they're on very important topics. I don't mean to be flippant. The first one is the Volksentscheid Fahrrad, which has successfully collected over 100,000 signatures for their cause. They needed to get 20,000 signatures by June 10. They've overshot that dramatically, and in fact, it's one of the most successful, or it is the most successful referendum petition that has ever gone around the city.
Better than Tempelhof.
Tempelhof only got 33,000 in order to trigger its referendum.
Oh my God.
That's one signature for every 30 people.
Yeah,
That's
get
true.
you.
You know your population and your maths. So in case you're trying to work out what it takes or wondering what it takes to actually get that many signatures, the Fahrrad Initiative had to get, they used 1,400 volunteers to collect the signatures, and it took them 3.5 weeks to do so. They were a very well-organized group there. And as a result of these 100,000 signatures, the city government is now legally obliged to consider the law that they proposed. And that law was calling for far more investment in bicycle infrastructure, increasing the number of bike lanes, widening the bike lanes, putting in more bike racks, basically turning Berlin into
Copenhagen.
into Copenhagen. Well, their argument is that Berlin spends far less per head than many other metropoles around Europe, and even though it seems on the streets that it's a great bike-friendly place, in terms of the actual built infrastructure, it's really lagging behind. Now, the city government's been fighting against this initiative for some reason. I really can't work out why. It's not very tactically smart, because obviously they've got a lot of support behind them, but the city government and its the senators have been really quite down on this referendum ever since it started. They're going to have to pay attention now because it's clear they've got citizen backing. So what happens now? The city government has to consider the law that the referendum or that the petition brought forward, and they have a couple of months to do that. And if they actually fail to act on what the citizens wanted, then it goes to another round of petition generation. They've got to go out and collect 180,000 signatures, and that's when it actually goes to a full, real, cast your ballot referendum.
And that's what happened with the Tempelhof referendum. They got those 180,000 signatures.
They got the second round of 180,000, and then they even won the referendum. But what's actually more likely to happen here is that, of course, we've got an election coming up, as we'll be discussing later in the show, because Yuri's running as a candidate. And the Green Party is really behind this initiative, as are Die Linke. So if either of those parties end up in the ruling coalition, they'll probably bring a lot of these policies with them into their coalition agreement, and they'll try and negotiate rather than going to a full referendum.
Seeing as the referendum already has 100,000 signatures and Tempelhof only had 33,000, it would be smart of the government to kind of negotiate terms before the referendum.
Well, that's the whole idea of the referendum process, is to actually, basically force the politicians to react to something that the public is obviously wanting. And if they don't, then they risk losing votes, don't they?
It seems likely that they will.
I think another way to get more funding for bike infrastructure, I was just in LA where they're putting a bunch more money into that due to the fact that their mayor got hit by a car on his bike.
Is that all it takes?
Yeah, I think there's just another way around this without having to
Where does
get all the
Michael Miller
signatures.
work?
I doubt he's biking to work.
Well, there's another petition doing the rounds at the moment, and it's called the Volksentscheid Retten, and it's the same group who basically led the Tempelhoferfeld referendum a few years ago. It's referendums all round, isn't it? We're turning into Switzerland.
This one is a meta-referendum because it's calling for a new law that protects referendums from being overturned by politicians after the fact.
Referenda.
Referenda. Thank you, Dan. I actually do have referenda written here, so I'm not...
Look, I took 2.5 years of Latin.
Really? It's referenda, not referendi?
I don't know at all. I have no idea.
It is referenda. So the last time, of course, Tempelhofer fell, we had a referendum. They introduced a law. The politicians a few months later went ahead and reversed that law. The law was about not building on the Tempelhofer Feld. The government said they wanted to do it in order to make room for refugee housing. Now, the people who started the original referendum weren't very happy that their law got overturned. So now they're starting a second referendum, which says if something is decided by the R word, which I'm sick of saying now, then the government can't overturn it unless they go ahead and get 50,000 of their own signatures. So it basically places the onus back on the government to say, if you don't like what we did, then go ahead and try and undo it through the same process that we had to do, basically.
Well, Joel, were the People's Front of Judea behind this? Any chance? No?
The Judea's People Front.
Now, here's the thing that we were wondering when we collected these news, is that the bicycle referendum, as the Tempelhof referendum, was seeking 20,000 signatures to get beyond that first hurdle for their referendum. But this petition of petitions, the meta petition, they need 50,000 signatures. And we weren't quite sure why that is. And so I took the liberty to call them up and ask.
Who'd you call?
The meta referendum people.
Oh, okay.
That's some real journalism right there.
Yeah, I'm quite proud.
What did you find out?
They the phone call lasted about 30 seconds. It's quite simple.
You're who? Click.
Yeah, hello. I have a question. Okay, the answer is that you need 50,000 signatures if you try to change the constitution of Berlin, not just like a referendum. And that's what they're trying to do with this new meta petition.
So the second group are going for a much bigger target than the first group.
That's right.
Although it does seem like the first group actually has more steam behind them than the second.
And their second hurdle actually is 500,000 signatures, not 180,000.
They've got a big job ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
We've all spent time on the U-Bahn staring out the windows, haven't we?
You said that so cheerily. That's really poetic. That should be like that sounds like a Tom Waits line or something.
Well, I did tonight, and I
We've
quite
all
enjoyed
spent
it.
time staring out the U-Bahn window.
Looking at the sketch of the Brandenburg Gate, the kind of graphic, you may have seen it on the windows of the U-Bahn, which is designed basically for various reasons. Artistically minded Berliners have been long annoyed by that sketch because it's so badly drawn.
The sketch is of the Brandenburg Gate. It's stuck to the windows of the U-Bahn in order to stop people from scratching the windows. But many people end up wanting to bang their head against the glass because the sketch is all drawn out of proportion. And you can especially notice this if you look at the bottom of the columns, which all point in different directions. The issue here is perspective. So here's a little art class. If you're going to draw something as a three-dimensional object, all the angles have to align to a vanishing point, in which they do not. Now,
who made this in the first place? It's insane.
Well, we've got a guest coming up who might be able to tell us something about the graphic design process at the BVG. It doesn't seem like they have one. So it probably just gave someone a pen and paper and said, why don't you just draw a sketch of the Brandenburg Gate? So anyway, the BVG has actually been receiving complaints about this for years. And they've been saying for years also that they're going to fix it.
But
in fact,
who's been complaining about it?
people complain. They have been getting...
But who do they ring?
Like,
Who do you call? I'd like to complain about why the Brandenburg Gate has been constructed in this visual image all over the U-Bahn. Who's going to do that?
Yuri can find out where we can call.
Okay.
So, because of all these complaints, they actually have fixed this issue, and they've been rolling out a new design. It's taken them a very long time. Last year, they said they were going to fix the design, and finally, for the first time, a few weeks ago, I started seeing it on the tracks. Yeah. I've been looking for it for a very long time, and it's actually out now. And the new design is a lot thinner, and it has fixed those problems on the bottom of the columns there. It's really not that much fantastically different, but it's just the small things that are going to hopefully stop graphic designers from going crazy on the trains. So unfortunately, if this image has been annoying you, you'll have to be annoyed for a little bit longer because they're only rolling this out on a replacement basis. So they're not stripping off the old stickers, they're only putting them on new windows and new doors. So for now, you'll have to be on one of the new trains, which is the long single carriage H model U-Bahns, as they're called, which are those ones that you can see all the way down. Yeah. And if you look very carefully on the doors of the long models of the trains is where you're going to see the stickers for now until until you break a few more windows and they.
Maybe we can speed it up by just peeling off the foil ourselves. They need to replace it.
That's civic duty. How civic-minded of our candidate for council here?
You gotta think before you talk now. I love that. Like I was like, oh, it's great, it's changed, and you know, I kept my eye out to see the new one. So excited, and then it changes, and you're like, man, this city's different. You gotta immediately. I remember the good old days, and those just didn't line up right.
BVG gentrification by graphic design.
Yeah.
There's been a theft reported on the U-Bahn, and the culprit is the BVG itself.
Bum bum bum.
The company that runs the U-Bahn has been caught using a graphic designer's piece of art without permission or payment. Here to tell us more about it is the designer of this font, Anton Kovid. Welcome, Anton.
Welcome to Radio Speckauf.
Hello.
Anton, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I've known Anton for a few years. You're an Estonian, and I have Estonian roots. We met actually in Tallinn, talking about the very topic of fonts. And when I moved here and we met again, I was just surprised to discover that you have designed a font called the U8. Do you want to tell us a bit about the font that you created?
Yeah, it was a sort of cause why I moved to Berlin. It was because I was fascinated by the type history in Germany. And but then quickly I found out that like most of kind of history was destroyed by war, so I had to dig a bit deeper to find like a proper German typefaces, and yeah.
Because this is what font designers do. They go around the world looking for evidence of old fonts and trying to see what they can basically get inspired by.
Yeah, and also to find something which somebody never discovered before or something like this.
So you arrived in Berlin, and if I remember the story correctly, you were at Alexanderplatz, and you saw the sign for Alexanderplatz on the wall at the U8 station, and you thought, that's an interesting font. What are we going to do about that?
Yeah, exactly. That's how it was. I was, in fact, it was in 2007, and I kind of got lost in the station. I thought the font was looked like really funny.
So what did you do about it?
Yeah, I kind of collected first all the signs of the subway stations. I took photographs, and then later on I also went to U-Bahn Museum and did my homework, so to speak. Yeah.
So you basically had to transfer it from old signs on the wall into something you can use on a computer, basically. You had to digitize it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like sort of if you need to kind of distill one certain face of a, let's say, man or something, but you're looking at hundreds of pictures, and then you need to get like kind of like a golden section of all these different variations that you see around you. So I tried to get the kind of...
So you did it, you created the font, you called it U8, and you released it to the graphic design world through your own type foundry. You've got a small business that you sell fonts, basically. That's how you make money.
Exactly.
And it's been used in a lot of places, hasn't it? Posters, official documents, it's all over the place these days, U8.
Yeah, websites, etc. Yeah.
So the only issue there is that if you're going to use the font, what you normally have to do is go to your website and pay you a license fee to actually use it.
Yeah, exactly, that's how it works.
And now we're up to the present moment, because this is all history up until now. But Anton, not long ago, you were walking through the U-Bahn station at Hermannstrasse, and you noticed something interesting that caught your eye. What was it that you saw?
First, I saw that they had kind of cleaned up the station. And then I looked like, oh, they have done as well new signs, and they look kind of familiar. And so I quickly noticed that it's also like the weight of the font. It's my design, and
you basically noticed that the BVG had started to use the digitized font that you had created on the walls of the Hermannplatz station or Hermannstrasse station. Yeah. What's wrong with that?
No, it's great. Like the thing is finally back in the state, because for a long time Hermannstrasse used like their corporate font, and the whole station was designed really like it looked like kind of temporary place or like.
I think that what Joel is trying to get at the elephant in the room. Is they're using your work?
That's what they do. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the question is, since you sell all the fonts through your own website, has the BVG paid you any money for your font?
I mean, that's the thing. We have also like certain resellers, so we can't get all the information. But I mean, I didn't notice the big cash flow. So, so let's say it's like some small studio probably had licensed it, but yeah, it's not on a corporate scale. Definitely, that's what I can say.
So if the BVG did actually want to use your font legitimately, they would have to buy a license to do so.
Yeah, probably.
And they have
multi-license probably as well.
And that's not a cheap thing for a big company to do, is it?
Yeah, it's they have a lot of computers, so it's like font licenses are regularly calculated by amount of machines where it's installed, and yeah.
So how does it make you feel that
there's a different? So you have to license it individually for each different font computer.
Yes. For each style as well. I mean, right now we just see that it's one style used, but yeah, it's. I mean, of course, if they buy for 500,000 computers, then they get quite a discount per each computer. But still, it's not €60.
All right, so you haven't.
It's more than they're fining you, basically, right? How many times have you been fined for not having a ticket, Anton?
Never. No, it was twice, but I paid my bill.
You paid your bill. Yeah. The BVG, as far as we know, has not paid theirs. How does that make you feel?
I mean, I'm still flattered because they found that my digitization looks like legible.
So basically, even if you're not getting paid, you're still font of the signs? So, just to play devil's advocate, is it possible that someone else actually created these letters in the first place, and that you sort of collected someone else's work, and then it was the BVG's property in the first place, and you were an intermediary?
Well, I kind of I had to interpret all these like different designs basically, because probably like certain model was same for every single sign painter who did let's say like Bodinstraße station, like Hermannplatz or whatever. But so there was probably somewhere master design, but during my research I haven't found that. And my font is an interpretation of all these things which I could find. So let's say, and it probably differs as well from the original master.
Right.
Like
the original
a lot.
Font of knowledge there.
So here's the real question. If the BVG wanted to legitimately do this themselves, how much work would they have to put into it? How long did it take you to digitize the font?
Yeah, it's like 1.5 years or something like that.
But like full time?
Yeah, like 5 days a week.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I did also few extra cuts, but yeah, the regular, yeah, it took. I mean, we also had reworked it several times. Yeah, I got it reviewed by other people, and yeah, it's like
that's not a small undertaking by any means.
No, definitely not. And but I mean, also, yeah, with the licensing and stuff and people using it, yeah. I get back all this investment slowly, but yeah, let's say, I think at BVG the best would be I would be happy just to have a like dialogue and to find out or they would help me in their archive with the real to find out this master design, because I mean and back in 2008 I could not really speak German, and I mean I got bounced back a lot. So
you're more interested in going into the archives than suing them for every penny they're worth. Is that what you're saying? What about like a free gold card where you could just ride the U-Bahn for like a lifetime without ever? Is there something else that they could do?
I would be happy.
Are you actually thinking of doing anything about this? I mean, it seems like an open and shut case. If I'm judging here, we can see you've got some photographic examples of exactly where you can see how it really is your font. We know that it's not someone else's. It's not something they pull off the walls. So we can actually see the examples. Why not take it to court?
Well, right now I'm busy with the next font.
Look, I think you got a case here.
Where do we go to see your work? Is there a website or?
Yeah, it's fattype.com.
Fattype.com?
Yeah.
All right.
And you can actually even find some of Anton's fonts if you use Google. Google actually was one of the first people to license Anton's font. You will find a font called Arvo right at the top of the font list, which is one of Anton's work. I don't know if you wanted me to tell anybody that, but there you go. It's
Okay.
So good luck if you do decide to go down the route of taking the BVG. Let us know how it goes, and we're all backing you. So thanks for keeping a piece of graphic design history from Berlin alive, and hopefully you'll get some reward out of it too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anton.
Joel, I'd just like to take a moment to apologize for some of the terrible puns I made during that last segment. I'd say that behavior was. I feel like that behavior was really infantile of me.
You're losing him.
Referendum on whether Dan should keep doing puns.
We've got housing news.
Housing.
Berlin's population boom, because it's really growing the city, means we might have to give up a bit more, I say a bit more green space. It doesn't say that here, it's just a bit of green space. I'd say yet more. Now the city's open-air swimming pools are being targeted as potential development zones.
The city's own housing company, Berlinovo, wants to build 2,500 student apartments and 300 other apartments for VGs, but they can't actually find the land to do it. They're now turning to other city-owned companies to try and purchase so far unused land. So the companies that they're going to are the Berliner Bäderbetrieb, which runs all the pools and has quite a lot of green open space. The BVG is being also asked if they've got any bits of land, and churches and are also being asked if they've got some old graveyards if they can give up to use for refugee shelters. So there's already one that's going to open up on Netzerstrasse up in Neukölln, which is up near the entrance to Tempelhof. So an old graveyard's going to be turned into a refugee shelter. But
That's good.
Well,
I mean, like leave the bathing areas alone, but graveyards are bullshit.
Yeah, think of the past.
And you only actually get to keep your grave for something like 10 or 20 years anyway, and then it gets handed over to somebody else, apparently. It's what I found out. But what do you think about this, Maisie? You're an avid pool fan.
Yeah, I don't think it's a very good idea. I just think it's sacred territory. It's more sacred than a graveyard for me, a swimming pool. And I think I'm probably repeating myself. If you go back a few hundred episodes, you'll find me ranting on about the Berliner Bäderbetrieb. I think it was 2014. Them privatising or selling off a lot of them and then raising the prices. It's a downward spiral, basically. Berlin used to be a paradise of fantastic swimming pools. I'm doing the back in the days thing, aren't I? I'm doing
it's great.
Yeah, 70-year-old. But yeah, and for me, that was one of the things I liked about Berlin and continue to like. And they're getting fuller because there's more of us here. But I just think leave it alone, it's precious.
But isn't that the point, though? We are in a growing city, and I mean, we're in a growing planet. Don't we all have to make concessions at some point? We can't just hang on to all the green space. People do have to live somewhere, so we're going to have to build at some point.
Can't they go outwards?
Students? Do they need homes? Is that really a thing?
They've got containers. They don't need, the Freibad Pankow.
I would agree that I think we should leave the hands off the pools, but we are going to have to get used to giving up a bit more of the comforts that we've become used to here in the city, because it is growing and we've got to make room for more people, and we can't just expect it to be the same as it's always been. Nowhere ever stays exactly the same. But yeah, maybe not pools.
Joel, I don't really believe you. I think you're making a concerted effort to be positive right now.
On our last episode, our co-host Göran Mandik announced that he's running as a candidate in the upcoming Berlin city elections. Göran.
Well, we talked about this last episode, and just for everybody who hasn't listened to it, and also for Dan and Maisie who weren't there and also haven't listened to it, I want to recap quickly. we are a team of journalists, and we're trying to look a bit deeper into Berlin politics, how it all works, and what one needs to do to become a member of parliament. And so we decided to play the game ourselves. And our first initial idea to register as a party quickly wasn't an idea anymore because we missed the deadline.
Not organized.
Too unorganized. But we
Don't
didn't give
vote
up.
for us.
We didn't give up and found out that one can still run as an independent. Deadline's a couple of months later. Woohoo! So I took it on myself to try to run as an independent.
Not because you want the fame and the glory.
No, this is journalistic purely.
Yeah. If you win, you won't even there's nothing in this for you, right? I mean, humble all the way, right?
Yeah. Well, we heard.
I think at this point that's what he's saying now. But clearly, we're like a couple of months from him being like into deep Serpico.
Where are you
running
out of
for
the whole
office.
process, Jury?
Yes. So I had to print out and fill out these 2 forms. Was the first step, and go with them to the Rathaus, which I've done. For the audience here, that's a photo of me at the Rathaus, where I went with my 2 forms. I went in there and I had to hand in these forms in order to get them to give me forms to collect signatures onto, which are on the table in front of me right now, if anyone's so inclined as to sign them later on.
But not just anyone. It has to be a very specific person who can sign that form.
That's right. You have to be a German citizen living in my district, which is Neukölln 1, which stretches from sort of east of Hermannplatz and then all the bits northeast of Sonnenallee and a bit beyond the canal as well. I guess it's a bit vague for a description. So if
It's
you're
basically
listening,
Weserstrasse and everything around Weserstrasse. It's like all the coolest bits of Neukölln, basically. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
yeah,
So
Neukölln Downs.
You need to get 45 people who live in Hipkeets to sign your piece of
45?
paper. 45. That's okay.
Yeah, if I get 45 valid signatures by July 12th, I will actually be with my name on the voting ballots. Someone can vote for me.
And so what's happening from here? What did the ladies in the office tell you when you dropped your form off?
Yeah, let me just tell you the whole thing. I went into the Rathaus and it was like no one was there, just this kind of dodgy-looking guy at the door, and sent me to the 4th floor. I had to climb these stairs, very wide
Stairs?
stairs. Yeah, stairs.
Oh no!
I guess there would have been a lift somewhere, but
You
I
can
just
change
took
that.
the stairs, and then I had to go into this other part of the building. It was all empty and bad lighting. It's very dark. And
That's why that photo of him looks so bad.
That part of the building is
the
like
lighting.
a kind of a donut, and you have to walk around. And I had to walk to the actual furthest corner of that building on the top floor, so like the last corner of the Rathaus. And there were 4 or 5 doors that said Bezirkswahlamt, so like the election office. Old, crappy-looking doors as well, and nowhere indicating which of those doors would be mine. So I chose the second from the right, and just tentatively knocked. And someone said, hello? And I went in and said, hello, I'm here to register.
Hello, where do I sign up for politics?
Yeah, I wanna seem on the ball. So I let them know that I'm here to register as an independent. I had my forms already in hand after I took a photo of them to show audience here today. And there was this young guy who seemed slightly perplexed. And as I voiced my demands, the boss actually came in from the next door and said, oh, he's new on the job, how can I help you? And they were very, very friendly, very accommodating, answered all my questions in detail, and helped me fill out the forms, they correct my mistakes in them, and then went on to send me the PDF of this signature collecting thing. And I think the takeaway here is it seems a lot easier to start the process of getting registered as an independent than it is to register your new address in Berlin.
Yeah.
That takes about 6 months.
Would it be? No, you can't. You have to be registered. Your address. Yeah, okay. You can't. We can't all just go upstairs and register as politicians instead of registering our address, can we?
You have to be German, that's true.
I was hoping for
And
a
you
little
have
bit
to
more
find it,
difficulty
right?
there. I was hoping you'd run into some bureaucratic problems there.
He said there were stairs. He had to pick a door.
I still have to get those 45 signatures.
That's true. That's probably insurmountable. What's your slogan? That's great. Vote Yuri.
Speaker is open on Sunday. More bicycle stuff. more people working at the Bezirksamt, so you can register.
Let's tighten that up. Let's get
That's
it.
like my main.
Yeah, that's a platform, but you need a slogan.
If anyone has an idea with what I should run with, send it in.
It sounds like you and Dan need to do a little bit of workshopping in the corner before you
I'm
actually
like a
do
guy
your first
behind the
public
guy.
speech,
I'm like the guy behind the guy. That's like.
I clearly need some help for the campaign.
Okay, here we go. On the next episode, Yuri, I want you to give your like platform speech. This is your like pitch to the voters. We want to hear a good 3-minute concise why you should vote for me. That'll be the highlight of the next episode.
Done.
Yeah.
Done.
And this is it. I mean, if this fails,
I'm going to dress up. I'm going to wear a suit, everything.
Don't you think maybe you should go for the non-suit vote? I mean, who's your audience here?
Do you know what the young guy who's new to the job, he said, damn, I live in Köpenick. You'd have my vote if I lived in Neukölln.
Oh, that's cool.
sweet.
Very nice, yeah.
Easy for him to say.
Yeah, hey.
Did he know what you were running on?
I left the Rathaus with a smile, though.
Or just your hair? He just saw that blonde hair and he thought, that's it, he's my guy.
He said, I just like it. Someone running as an independent. I like the Olympic spirit. That's what he said. That guy was easy to please, I'd say. Thank you, though.
But is there going to be an election at all, Yuri?
Well, yeah, all this talk about me trying to get registered, we might not even have a proper election anyway. Okay, so the Landeswahlleiterin, the woman in charge of the whole election for the state of Berlin, sent a alarming letter to the Senate warning them that Berlin Bürgerämters are too slow to register people for the election to actually be valid. The reason behind that is that in order to vote, you need to be registered for 3 months. So if you moved here like 2 months ago and still haven't been registered by, around now, you won't be able to vote, although you should technically be able to. And that means that the election could be declared invalid.
So does that mean that the Bürgerämter are disenfranchising Germans, basically?
That's basically the
Or
argument.
anyone,
That's
actually,
what the
locals.
Wahlleiter is saying, is that there are people who are losing their vote because the Bürgeramt is too slow.
Is this a knock-on effect of them being understaffed?
Yeah.
But that's only one problem. The other problem is that they're trying to use some new software that's supposed to help with the preparation and the actual election. And they've been testing it, and it came out all wrong. They printed the ballots wrong, and like a whole bunch of confusion. There was data went missing, data sets were mixed up, and that whole thing puts it at threat as well.
So if you lose, we've got a plausible excuse here, which is that we were robbed, basically, Bush versus Gore
Never
style.
had a chance in the first place.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, I do need those 45 signatures until July 12th in order to keep reporting on this. So if you think you live in Neukölln 1 between Hermannplatz, Sonnerlee, and like the canal roughly, if you're not sure, send us an email anyway. And a German who's been living there for 3 months at least, send us an email and we'll get you to put your signature on this form.
We'll come to you even. That's how desperate we are for them.
Yeah.
Of course, I'll collect the signature. No worries.
It's time for some sports news with our intrepid sports reporter, Daniel Stern.
I thought I'd do a little reporting on baseball, because that's I think the season that's in right now. And a couple of years ago, I was out wandering around Tempelhof, and this is hot off the presses, and they play baseball out on those baseball fields there, and it's a team, and it was charming. They were called the Rangers. So I went to go look up them on the internet to get some up-to-date information, and it turns out they've changed their name to the Braves.
Why is that controversial?
Because I consider it gauche and offensive to use Native American nicknames and caricatures as part of supporting your sports endeavors.
This is actually a big issue in the US, isn't it? There's a major team there that's someone's.
There's tons of teams, major and minor, that this has been a habit for decades and decades that we're trying to break.
Washington Red Sox, is it?
Redskins.
Redskins?
Yeah. No, it's real offensive. So there's like a lot of things of like tomahawk chops and terrible drawings, and it's just it's real weird. Now I know people who are like involved in this club in various sports, and they're all real nice, and they put on nice events and have nice teams and all of that. And I really thought like, oh, maybe I should write to them and get a response as to like why they would have this name or these logos, and then I decided not to. I mean, because it's I don't think I really need to hear by doing that you're making a statement. And I mean, it's not like, and they've got a glossy website. They've got Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat
They're
and
really
Twitter.
invested in this name, aren't they?
I mean, I'm just saying, like, they could have Googled their own name to find out, like, is this a good idea? I mean, they clearly, if you have a Snapchat account, you know how Google works. I'm not as mad about this as I was a few hours ago when I insisted that I talk about this. But by using like images and vocabulary that was like part of like the dehumanization of a people that leads to like, you know, a country accepting their genocide, I think that that's just like inappropriate to mix with sports. But I could be wrong.
Can we forgive them for like being innocent Germans who just thought it was cute or something?
No, my whole they have a Snapchat thing. It's like Google your own name when you pick it out, like, right? I mean.
Well, this is a country where the comedy does border on, you know, like offensive caricatures of native peoples quite often, doesn't it? When they like, you know, stand up doing voices and, you know, Indian characters and.
I think there was an advert recently that was pulled up for that with two mother and was it son with a Native American headdress on and talking about your little braves or whatever, and that got lots of stick. So I think there's a little bit of awareness of it. But what about coming up with an alternative name?
Yeah,
Dan?
I think we should call them the Berlin Rabbis.
Why?
I don't know. I'm just throwing out different stuff. They were. I don't know.
That wouldn't offend anybody.
I think I was trying to make a point. That was rhetoric. That wasn't a real suggestion. You're right. We should come up with a new logo and name for them. I suggest the Furious Yuris, and we can get Yuri's face on there. It can be a whole synergy.
2 for 1.
Rebrand them.
Yeah, rebrand them and rebrand.
Do I want to get involved with them?
Yeah, man. This is about your rise to power.
Okay.
So I'm assuming in all of your righteous fury about the name there, Dan, you didn't actually look at how the sport is or how the teams are doing.
Oh, I'm sure they're great. Yeah. I mean, all that aside, they're my favorite sports team. No, I don't know. No, they look like great guys, and I want to, you know, they're people I see out in the world. So sorry about me being a jerk, but you know, also don't have like pictures on you. Just don't do that. That's. I think I've made my point.
Yeah, good call.
Thank you.
Remember how a few episodes ago Joel gave us his 6 theories on why there are so many abandoned bike locks around Berlin? We actually managed to get an official police spokesman for bicycle affairs to give his opinion about which theory was most likely.
First of all, there's an official spokesperson for bicycles in the police department. That's pretty amazing. And the guy answered in German, so we translated what he said. The first theory that Joel came up with was someone cut through the bike. The police guy said that was unlikely exclamation mark.
That's what I thought too. He supported my view on that one, yeah.
Yeah. The second one that Joel came up with was someone has cut through the wheel. Slightly different there. He reckons that is possible and has happened in isolated instances. Third, we had the polite lockpicker who just picked the lock and then put it back together for the owner to pick it up. The police guy actually thinks that has happened before as well. And then we had, this was Josh's idea, wasn't it? Yeah, Joshua of Mobile Kino said that there might be an organized cyclist distributed lock system where cyclists just leave locks in places where they go often and then, share them around as a system. And the policeman said, this for me is the most plausible explanation. Maybe less as a network of many cyclists, but rather single cyclists who deposit their locks in locations they often lock their bikes in. I feel like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. If you go to work every day, why would you carry your stupid heavy lock? Just leave it there.
Hang on, the policeman spokesman actually suggested that the people doing this is a thing.
Yeah, that was his favorite idea we came up with.
More favorite than like the stoner, which was my
Well, we also had the intentionally abandoned lock. He reckoned not likely, but nothing is truly unlikely in Berlin. Blah, blah.
Did he really say that?
That's what he said, yeah. Everybody loves Berlin. So crazy here.
And did he say that too?
That was me.
That was you. Okay.
And then number 6,
I love
Joel's
that there's a
favorite.
cop who's like, it's crazy here. I don't know. Like, these people are crazy. I
sound
don't
like that,
know.
yeah.
That was an offensive stereotype of an accent, by the way.
You're fired. And then Joel's favorite idea was the stoner. And he said, certainly would have happened in a number of cases, also a plausible explanation. So not bad.
But however, his favorite theory was still
The distributed bike lock system.
There is a seventh theory.
another theory.
There is a seventh theory that's been presented to us from some source. I didn't come up with this, which is that if you're stealing a bike and then replace the locked up, you then have plausible deniability that you just found an unlocked bike that you were on your way to return or find the owner of, as opposed to a bike that you had clearly stolen because the bike was unlocked.
So plausible deniability theory. All right, I'll add that one to the list. I've got to say
We should
though,
write back to the police and waste more of their time with this.
Yeah, send another email.
I've got to say, because I listed the theory that he liked the most as the least likely, because I thought this is the stupidest idea I've ever heard.
Well, he made a slight adjustment in saying that it's just single cyclists, not a whole network.
Well,
There's an app
Yeah, it's
in
always
this.
a thought that
In my-
it's a conspiracy all of a sudden when they don't want the truth to come out.
that's what I'm saying, and I'll tell you why. Because it's in the police's interest to try and claim that it is a non-criminal related activity. See, if it's people sharing locks, then there's no
Right.
bikes being stolen. The police don't want to admit that there's lots of bike theft. It looks bad if there's more crime statistics. He's obviously going to say that it's the one
He's
that has.
repressing
It
the
is the only
statistics.
theory. Yeah.
You thought this out,
He
John.
needs more time to write idiotic emails to us.
Time wasters.
Well, you'll be happy to know that it's almost time for us to go on this rather shambolic episode of Radio Spätkauf. But before we go, we've got a word from our sponsor, who are the fantastic Mobile Kino. We're actually sitting in front of the Mobile Kino screen right now. We didn't bother saying that the whole time we've been.
Yeah,
doing
we're
the
here
show.
at Greismühle.
We're Griesmüller Dan. And
If you say so.
Mobile Kino, who help us out all the time. We share information. We help each other out. Well, they've got a great event coming up at the end of July called the Mobile Kino Weekender. The Weekender is a camping trip, 3 days, July 29 to 31, out in the woods in Brandenburg by a lake. It's actually a film festival where you camp, and every night there's movies on. There's also music during the day, and Daniel, I believe you're going to be the camp master, playing games, helping everyone.
Yeah, I'll bring some entertainment during the daylight hours when we cannot screen films due to the effects of the sun.
And it's a fantastic event. It's been happening for the last 3 years. I can only highly recommend it. There are limited tickets, so make sure you get them and come along and join us. We're going to be doing a live recording of Radio Spätkauf out there, which will hopefully be a little bit more prepared than this one. And if you come along, you can be part of that. So yeah, thanks Mobile Kino. Dan, you've got a few plugs as well, don't you?
Yeah, we'll put this out within the next 2 days, right? Saturday afternoon, if you guys want to come out, I'm doing a reading of a sitcom pilot I wrote at Comedy Cafe at 2 p.m. sharp. Get there at 1:30. Let's say that to get a seat, and it'll be fun. It'll be like a theater of the mind. You know, we're not going to act it out. We're going to sit there and read it, but it'll be really fun. And I hope a few people come out to tell me that I did a good job writing, or tell me I did a bad job, and then I'll try harder in the future.
Say again when?
2 p.m. Comedy Cafe. 1:30 p.m. Comedy Cafe, Weserstrasse, Ecke, Rosenstrasse.
The reopened Comedy Cafe have now resolved their issues.
That's right.
What's your working title? What's your sitcom called?
I'm a donut.
I'm a Donut. Very good.
Great
Historical
title.
referencing. Very clever.
Thank you. I try to be.
Well, we're all out of time. We're all out of stories. Thank you very much for coming along. Thank you for listening. We've been Radio Spätkauf.
And thanks for the audience who braved the rain. Well done.
Yeah, guys, give
Yeah.
yourselves a round of applause.
Thank you for coming.
You're good people. You deserve it.
Tschüss.
Tschüssi.
Ciao.
Radio Spätkauf.